Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss the criteria required to describe consonant sounds. As you know, there are 44 sounds in RP. Of these, 24 are consonants and the remaining 20 are vowels. So we are going to look at how we can describe a consonant sound. We have to consider 6 factors or 6 criteria while describing consonant sounds. They include the airstream mechanism, the state of the glottis, the position of the soft palate, the active articulator, the passive articulator, and the stricture involved. Let's take a look at the first criterion, that is the airstream mechanism. As you know, in order to produce any speech sound, we require a moving current of air. This is called the airstream. The airstream that is used to produce the sounds of English and most Indian languages, except Sindhi, and most of the languages in the world, is the airstream involving the lungs, that is the pulmonic airstream. We have two types of pulmonic airstreams, the ingressive pulmonic airstream and the egressive pulmonic airstream. By ingressive airstream, we mean the air that is pulled into the lungs, and by egressive pulmonic airstream, we mean the air that is pushed out from the lungs. All the speech sounds of RP are produced using the pulmonic egressive airstream mechanism. Moving on to the second criterion, the state of the glottis. The glottis is the space between the vocal cords. It is possible to have two types of sounds based on the state of the glottis, that is, voiceless or breathed sounds and voiced sounds. Vocal cords can take up three different positions. They can either be held wide apart or held together loosely, or they can be tightly pressed against each other. Depending on the position of the vocal cords, we have two types of sounds. When the vocal cords are wide apart, the glottis, that is the space between the vocal cords, is wide open. This is the position of the glottis when we breathe. It is the wide open glottis which facilitates the free passage of air from and to the lungs. It is possible to produce speech sounds with the vocal cords wide apart, that is the glottis wide open. Such sounds are called voiceless sounds. They can also be referred to as breathed sounds because this is the position of the vocal cords when we breathe. The second type of sound, that is voiced sounds, are produced when the vocal cords are held together loosely. When the vocal cords are held together loosely, they vibrate. Due to the pressure of the air coming from the lungs, the vocal cords are pushed apart. A puff of air escapes, the vocal cords come back to their original position. This takes place many times a second and leads to a vibration which results in a buzzing sound which is technically referred to as voice. When sounds are produced with the vocal cords held together loosely so that they vibrate, as a result we get what we call voiced sounds. That means these sounds are accompanied by that buzzing note called voice. The third criterion is the position of the soft palate. The soft palate can either be raised or lowered. Depending on the position of the soft palate, we can have three types of sounds: oral sounds, nasal sounds, and nasalized sounds. In RP, we do not have nasalized sounds, we have only oral and nasal sounds. Now, when the soft palate is raised, the nasal passage is closed. The air escaping from the lungs can be pushed out or can escape either through the nostrils or through the mouth. If the nasal passage is closed, and if there is no restriction or block anywhere in the oral cavity, the air coming from the lungs can escape freely through the mouth. This is what happens when oral sounds are produced. The air cannot pass out through the nose, it can escape only through the mouth. When the soft palate is lowered, the passage into the nose is open. Simultaneously, if there is an oral closure, that means if there is a block or a restriction anywhere in the oral cavity, the lung air can escape only through the nose. Speech sounds which are articulated with the soft palate in the lowered position are referred to as nasal sounds. It is also possible to articulate sounds with both the oral as well as nasal passages open. Such sounds are referred to as nasalized sounds. So during the articulation of a nasalized sound, the lung air will be passing out through both openings, through the nostrils as well as the mouth. But we do not have any nasalized sounds in RP. There are only 3 nasal sounds in English. The remaining 41 sounds are oral sounds. The active articulator. In order to produce any speech sound, we require 2 articulators, the active articulator and the passive articulator. Of these 2 articulators, one moves during the production of speech. The articulator that moves is referred to as the active articulator, whereas the articulator that remains passive is termed the passive articulator. So during the production of any speech sound in RP, the active articulator moves towards the direction of the passive articulator. For example, if you consider the sound per, if you try saying that sound, you will realize that the 2 articulators used to produce the sound per are the 2 lips, the upper lip and the lower lip. Of these 2 articulators, the upper lip remains passive. It does not move. It is the lower lip which moves towards the upper lip. So the lower lip is the active articulator and the upper lip is the passive articulator. The last criterion we take into consideration while describing a consonant sound is the stricture involved. By the term stricture, we mean how the airstream is modified by various organs. The air coming from the lungs passes through several organs before it is thrown out into the atmosphere, either through the nose or through the mouth. So, en route, it is modified by these different organs involved in the production of speech. So the manner in which the airstream is modified is referred to as stricture. Now, based on the stricture involved, we have different types of consonants. We can classify consonants into various types based on the stricture involved. They include plosives, affricates, nasals, laterals, fricatives, frictionless continuants, and semivowels. Plosives are consonant sounds which are produced with a stricture of complete closure and sudden release. Complete closure means complete oral closure. That means during the production of a plosive consonant, the 2 articulators required to produce that sound will come into firm contact with each other. At the same time, the nasal passage is closed by raising the soft palate. Now, when the 2 articulators are suddenly separated, the air from the lungs, the air that was pushed out from the lungs, which was temporarily blocked behind the oral closure, is released suddenly with a slight explosive sound. Such sounds are referred to as plosives. So, plosive sounds involve a stricture of complete closure and sudden release. The second type of sound is referred to as an affricate. Affricates involve a stricture of complete closure and slow release. The only difference between plosives and affricate sounds is that in the case of affricates, the release of the articulators is slow and gradual, so that the air coming from the lungs passes out through the mouth without any explosive sound, unlike the plosives. So to produce an affricate sound, the two articulators come into contact. The soft palate is raised, blocking the nasal passage. When the two articulators are gradually separated, the lung air escapes slowly through the mouth. Due to the slow release of the lung air, it is possible to hear friction in the case of an affricate sound. There are two affricates in RP. They are ch and j. The third type of sound, according to the stricture involved, are nasals. Nasal sounds are articulated with a stricture of complete oral closure. As the name implies, during the articulation of these consonants, the nasal passage is open by lowering the soft palate. At the same time, the oral cavity is closed. So the only possibility for the air coming from the lungs is to escape through the nostrils. Such sounds are referred to as nasals. We have only three nasal sounds in RP. They are and n. The fourth type of sound are referred to as laterals. Laterals involve a stricture of partial closure. There is only one lateral consonant in English, that is L. If you try saying this sound, you will see that in order to produce this sound, we raise the tip of the tongue so that it makes a firm contact with the alveolum or the teeth ridge. This is how we effect the oral closure. At the same time, the soft palate is in the raised position, blocking the nasal passage. But though there is an oral closure, it is only partial because the sides of the tongue are lowered, allowing the blocked lung air to pass out through the sides of the mouth. This is how a lateral sound is produced. Fricatives are produced with a stricture of close approximation. The term approximate means to come close. So close approximation, that is the stricture in order to produce a fricative sound. So when we produce a fricative consonant, the two articulators come very close to each other, but they do not make contact. There is a very narrow gap between the two organs, the two articulators, so that the air coming out from the lungs, which cannot pass out through the nose because the nasal passage is closed by raising the soft palate, can only escape through the mouth. But the air passes out through the narrow gap between the two articulators very slowly with great difficulty, resulting in audible friction. We can hear friction during the articulation of a fricative sound. Examples of fricative sounds are sh, s, f, th, etc. Then we have frictionless continuance. A sound like r is a frictionless continuant. Semi-vowels include y and w. These sounds are articulated exactly like vowels, but they are classified with consonants because they occupy marginal position in a syllable, whereas a vowel sound can occupy only a central nuclear position. That's all for the day. Thank you.